Hi guys, it's Kamil here, and today we're going to talk about Tsitsi Dangarembga's trilogy, especially this Mournable Body, shortlisted for Booker Prize 2020. The title of Tsitsi Dangarembga's novel, This Mournable Body, was inspired by Teju's essay titled Unmournable Bodies, written in the aftermaths of Charlie Hebdo massacre in 2015. Charlie Hebdo, a French satirical magazine, was attacked by Islamists who, on the 7th of January 2015, forced their way into Charlie headquarters and killed 12 staff members and wounded 11. The newspaper was known for its unapologetic secular approach and satirical presentation of various religions, including Islam. Prophet Muhammad's caricatures, often present in the newspaper, were the main reason for the attack. The Western societies justly, in my opinion, interpreted the attack as one against the freedom of speech, and supported the victims with various movements. The most prominent of them was the one, Je suis Charlie. Teju in his essay Unmournable Bodies pointed out the Western imbalance in approach to the dead bodies and the mourning of them, where white European bodies killed by extremists are mourned extensively, while those killed either by similar extremists or by state-sponsored violence in brown parts of the world, or even by Westerners themselves running their military operations in those brown parts of the world, all of those brown bodies, brown victims, are not mourned the same way. And those are the unmournable bodies, whose numbers outweigh the mournable Western victims significantly. Tsitsi Dangarembga creates an interesting dichotomy, inverting Cole's title and naming the novel set in the part of the world populated by Cole's unmournable bodies and giving it a title, This Mournable Body. Why do I talk about a dichotomy? By choosing such a telling title, it seems that Dangarembga underlines her character's personhood and requires closer attention than the one Westerners would usually offer characters like hers. However, even though Cole writes about unmournable bodies, those bodies are unmournable only from the Western perspective. Therefore, by choosing that title, which so strongly references the Western perspective, Dangarembga places her novel in that Western discourse, right? Now, Kwame Anthony Appiah, professor from New York University, NYU, in the introduction to Nervous Conditions, the first installment of the series, completed by The Mournable Body, argues that even though there's a common critical view that modern African novel is implicitly addressed to the Western reader, in his opinion, Tsitsi Dangarembga's writing lacks the telltale marks of the author addressing the reader from the Western world. And as he further argues, even though the world Dangarembga creates is understandable for the Western reader, she is not shying away from referencing Shona's vocabulary or customs without a glossary that would help explaining it to the Western reader. Additionally, the main question of the novel of how Western-educated African women can find a way to escape oppression from the patriarchal and colonial past to build a meaningful life is not something from the sphere of life of the Western reader. When we set those two elements together, the novel's title and what Kwame Anthony Appiah writes about Dangarembga's writing, it creates an interesting dichotomy, right? Tsitsi Dangarembga is an institution. She is a film director, dramatist, and novelist. And aside of that, a vocal activist. Dangarembga's trilogy, consisting of Nervous Conditions from 1988, The Book of Knots from 2006, and This Mournable Body from 2018, focuses on the female hardship of post-colonial life in patriarchal Zimbabwean society. Her protagonist is Tambudzai, a young girl we meet in nervous conditions who works her own field to earn money for school fees, while the last volume of the novel, This Mournable Body, starts when Tambudzai finds herself educated but impoverished and jobless after leaving what seems like a prestigious position in an advertising agency. She is increasingly disappointed with how her life turned out, to the point that she narrates the story of her life, her own life, in the second person, to underline the detachment between her aspirational self and the one she became. Due to fortunate, or as it seems fortunate, turns of events, she returns to the job market, hired by her white school friend in a travel agency where she is to organize an organic travel experience to rural Zimbabwe for Western Europeans. What's most fascinating about the trilogy that Dangarembga's created is her unapologetic approach to describing the faults of human nature. Those were not heroic from rags to riches stories. Her characters are faulty, starting from full of patriarchal silliness father, whose behavior, often comical in his self-righteousness, is easily dismissed even by young Tambu, to the main protagonist herself, who when adult is full of resentment of being excluded from the middle-class life, regardless of the hardships she went through to get to that position when entering into that class was possible for her. Even though in nervous conditions we were rooting for Tambu to succeed with her education, in This Mournable Body, as interesting character as she is, she definitely is not likable. We sympathize with her, true, but it's hard not to feel distaste when we see how, being terrified of falling back to the impoverished class, she turns her village into a safari experience for Westerners, going deeper into once colonized world to experience the real life. But should Tambu be blamed for that? Or she is simply trying to survive in the post-colonial capitalist society when globalization comes for whatever unique the country or the geography has to offer? And in that case, in Africa, it's safari and it's exotic, primitive, and therefore organic in the eyes of Europeans' life. Chimamanda Ngozie Adichie, in her TED Talk, The Danger of a Single Story, warns that when a singular story is heard or shared, it is assumed to be the representative, the truth. And that is what global capitalism demands from Africa, a single truth in form of exoticism and safari. That's why Dangarembga's body of work is so important. She shows Zimbabwean's characters as multi-dimensional ones, suffering from limitations imposed by the patriarchal culture as well as Western globalization. She shows Zimbabwean life in all its shades, some of them very similar to our Western ones, but also having its very unique aspects. She brings you closer to its rich culture and makes you more sensitive to its varied stories, and therefore makes you see Zimbabwean society as human equals, as Chimamanda Ngozie Adichie would put it, with their aspirations, dreams, and faults. You know, we humans are creatures of stories. We build our societies around stories and because of stories. But a single story can be extremely dangerous. It does not only simplify, but subjugate. And that's why it's so important to read varied literature, especially the one not written explicitly for Western readers, to escape the danger of a single story. I hope Dangarembga wins this year's Booker Prize, not only because of the varied issues this novel addresses, but also because it's the best Booker novel I've read so far from the shortlist. One of the best second-person narrations I've ever read. Deeply human, very well written, and the whole trilogy is as unique as it is literally impressive, being in a deep discourse with post-colonial literature. Nervous Conditions, the title of the first installment, is taken from the introduction by Jean-Paul Sartre to Frantz Fanon's The Wretched of the Earth, a work on psychological dehumanizing aspects of colonization. Those three novels are in essence an investigation of last 30 years of post-colonial legacy in Zimbabwe and its impact on Zimbabwean society and their women. Okay guys, so that's all I have for today. Have a brilliant weekend, and please let me know what did you think about those novels if you read them. And obviously, I talk to you soon. Stay safe. Bye bye.